Hey, I'm Vego, and these are 5 things I wish I knew before I started taking psychedelics. Actually, it's 5 more things I wish I knew. There's a part 1 and even part 2 of this video series, which you can watch right here, where I shared some other insights. But as I kind of started thinking about it, I was like, there's no regrets in my life. There's no regrets on my journey. But there's actually quite a few things I wish I knew before I embarked on this journey of taking psychedelics, working with psychedelics, engaging in psychedelic space and in psychedelic community, and walking this path of psychedelic actualization. By the way, if you're curious about working with me one-on-one on your psychedelic integration of discovering and actualizing your life purpose, you can check out the link in the video description. That's my coaching offer, and you can apply to work with me and join our inner circle community of psychonauts, empowering each other to actualize their life purpose. It's great. So lesson number 1 is patience is key. Oh, such a simple insight. Such a simple one, right? But such a fundamental one. I found that I was rushing. Looking back at my journey, like I thought I had to get somewhere fast with the work of psychedelics. I thought I had to gain a lot of experience very fast, especially as I feel like it's related to my work and my life purpose. I wanted to gain a lot of experience very fast and change very fast, right? Integrate all at once, do all, like, wow, there was a great passion. But I found that there's no need to rush this journey into psychedelic space. There's no need to go into one after the other in such a fast pace. And a little bit of a higher dose and a little bit of a higher dose and a little bit of a higher dose. Because what I found is that sometimes I went a little bit too fast and then I burnt myself. And I kind of moved into a state of crisis, a state of challenging times and integration, right? And that is quite interesting. That nowadays I have more like this ease, and I wish I kind of approached my journey with a little bit more ease of like there's no need to get anywhere. You're not gonna get anywhere either way, right? Chasing these peak experiences, just whenever it feels most aligned, and that can be in a great frequency, you move in, and you move in whatever dosage feels aligned at the moment, and then it moves you into crisis. It happens, but there's no need to force anything. And the same goes for our integration as well. For the psychedelic integration, I found, and I see many people, my coaching clients, they want to move so fast, right? They want to change so fast. And then you have this bulk and this mountain of things you want to change and you feel overwhelmed. But even there, in the psychedelic integration, change is happening, right? Growth is happening. Self-actualization is happening, but it's happening in its own time. Organically, it's going to evolve and unfold in its own time. There's no need to control the pace of that unfolding. There's a beautiful quote in LSD and the Mind of the Universe from Christopher Bache that I want to read to you regarding this crucial key insight of patience, right? He said, "What I experienced was the core of the being I had become, or am becoming in this incarnation. What I experienced convinced me that the circumstances of my life were filled with deliberate purpose and intent. I came away with a deep sense of being rooted in meaningful work and important relationships. I feel that I finally understand what I am about and where I am in my life. I feel grounded in a definite place with definite people at an early stage in a rich life. I'm also taking away patience for my incompleteness. Everything I was seeing would be mine, but I had to be patient. There was no need to fight the pace of my unfolding." He was kind of peeking in the psychedelic experience what his life would be like and his vision, how that would look like. But there's no need to rush towards that, right? The lesson is to be patient, to really cultivate this sense of patience. And that's something I kind of wish I would have established a little bit earlier on in my journey. It would have made it a bit more peaceful and kind of, I would have moved with a greater sense of ease through whatever stages. Next up is, there are physical dangers. There are physical dangers and costs to the psychedelic experience. It's a big one that I feel like isn't talked enough about. Because I surely wasn't really aware when I tapped into psychedelic space. I kind of came into it with this frame of mind that this is amazing. Like I heard Alan Watts and Terence McKenna and Ram Dass talk about it, and I was like, this is amazing. And then with this whole therapeutic movement and the legalization that is happening all around the world, there's a lot of emphasis on the healing properties of the psychedelics. And those are there, no doubt about it. I love them. That's why I do everything I do and why I still continue to go into journeys. But I kind of wish I knew that there is real physical consequences to certain experiences and kind of costs also associated with expanding your state to these very, very different degrees of consciousness. I have personally experienced, for example, a spiritual crisis. Well, it was a very hardcore experience that kind of caused that. You can watch the video series right here. But I kind of continued to have a very loud tinnitus from that moment on. So that's kind of a physical consequence in my day-to-day life. And it's not unheard of, right, in the psychedelic community, even in spiritual circles. It's kind of a common symptom. But also, like, people experience, like, crazy physical effects in and during a psychedelic experience, and also afterwards. And so to just be aware of that, I wish I kind of knew that this is a possibility of happening, so I can take responsibility if that is happening to me. And don't think you're excluded from this. I always thought also I was excluded from this. Like, yeah, maybe there's physical dangers to all this, or there's costs associated to God realization and moving into ever deeper states of awakening. But it's not going to affect me, right? Right? And it's like, right? But it is affecting me. And nowadays I'm struggling also. 10 months of being sick, or 11. It has been a consequence, maybe out of psychedelic space, right? There's a lot of mystery around this concept of the cost, which I'm not sure about, right? I honestly have to say I don't know. I don't know how much that is related to the use of psychedelics, because they have also physical healing properties. But at the same time, it feels like that there's a certain cost associated with their use, and that might be even physical. If you are in great danger, or kind of, I don't know, moving through a state of crisis, I actually wrote a book about spiritual crisis and spiritual emergency and how to move through the dark night of the soul. If you're experiencing some heavy symptoms after a challenging psychedelic experience, you can download that book completely for free. Link is in the video description, just so you know. So, next up, I kind of wish I knew that not everybody is using psychedelics responsibly. And that basically the result of the psychedelic experience that is emerging in a specific person is depending on the person. So the self-actualization, the self-realization, the growth that is happening, the result of that, it's not up to the psychedelic, it's up to you. On how you work with those substances. Because I've met people who have gone into hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of psychedelic experiences, and they are miserable. They're not even using them for self-actualization. Many people are just using them for fun, right? And I wasn't even aware of this, because I kind of got into the journey by just immediately working with them for self-actualization and self-realization. And also, there is people who use it for, from my humanly perceived bias, bad things, right? There's a lot of dark magic going on, a lot of nasty stories of people, which I kind of listened into. James Kent, I think was his name. He had a podcast about the dark side of psychedelics, and a lot of nasty stories. And also Danny forgot his last name, but Danny had a talk at Ozora recently, which I listened to, in which he talked about the dark side of psychedelics. People using the military, using ayahuasca for nighttime vision of the military, improved nighttime vision, right? It's like, what? What is going on? Psychedelics do not necessarily make you a better person, even though that was kind of an assumption I have kind of made for myself, because they opened me up to this loving space and being empathetic and compassionate. But they can be used for evil, basically, which is interesting, and which is something I wish I kind of knew before I started out. I don't know what would have changed in my journey, maybe not too much, but it's just something good to be aware of, that the result depends on the user, right? It's not the psychedelic that is responsible for the end result. It's still you, and it still counts on you for your integration and what you do with these experiences and with these substances and with these states of consciousness. You do it for white magic or black magic. It's a very interesting field to look into. We'll talk more deeply about the dangers and the dark side of psychedelics as well. But it's definitely something I wish I knew before I jumped into this whole thing. Another thing I wish I knew before I started out on my journey of psychedelic integration and actualization is that community is key, right? I have kind of realized more and more over the years that community is such a crucial part of psychedelic life, basically, of my life as a psychedelic person, as a psychedelic persona in this society. I love to and get nourished by spending time with people who are also passionate about this work of psychedelics. And at first I was alone for a couple of years maybe, and I was fine being alone. For some people it's much more difficult being alone and still being in a working environment or a family environment in which there's no understanding regarding this. For me it was fine. I was young and I was like on my way. But building this community now, I recognize that it's crucial. It's key for integration, for exchange, for networking, for sharing experiences, for holding space for each other, for sharing perspectives also on all these different weird experiences that we're having, on all these levels of experience that we're journeying into. It's just bonkers, right? So it's good to have someone to connect to, or a group of people to connect to integrate these experiences. And I kind of wish I knew the importance of this, so I would have gone out and invested in myself and in the activities and travels I did to build this network of people, to build this community, to be part of a community, to cultivate and bring my service into this space to serve that community. Because in service there's just a beautiful way to feel fulfillment, right? If you give yourself then and you serve, it's a wonderful way of being happy. So yeah, community is key. It's worth building it. It's worth building it and starting right now, right? And if you want to start joining a community of passionate psychonauts who are on their way of actualizing life purpose, there's a community, an inner circle of the psychedelic actualization community of people who are working also with me one-on-one. If you're curious about joining that, you can apply. The link is in the video description below. So the last thing, the fifth one, 5 things, right? It's such a beautiful number. Fifth thing I wish I knew before I started out on my journey of taking psychedelics is that nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows what's going on. It's a big one. It's also like a classic one, right? But I feel like I've spent like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years now studying the field and reading dozens and dozens of books around this field. And I feel like I've come to the conclusion that everybody has a different perspectives. But where I kind of got into conflict is that people who present themselves as knowing what's going on are full of shit, right? So Obviously, that's what I'm doing here on this channel as well, right? If you want to present a message and a perspective, you gotta formulate and make it tangible, a perspective, an opinion. But basically, to have this remembrance, I guess, to never fall into this trap of thinking that I know what's going on, because I don't. Because there's realms of the psychedelic experiences which are so far out that I can't even fathom what's going on up there. Right? There's experiences so weird, and just the structure of reality itself, that's kind of what the psychedelics are showing, right? It's so weird that I feel like you can't possibly come to an understanding. You may try, if you're passionate about this and you have fun trying to understand, but ultimately, I feel like still nobody knows what's going on. It's the good old Terence McKenna quote, which is just a classic. And there is no right and wrong, right, in psychedelic work, right? I was creating a course kind of for psychedelic preparation and integration, and I was assuming that there was a right way or a wrong way to do things, and I wanted to present the right way, right, of psychedelic preparation, of psychedelic integration. And what I discovered is that there is no right and wrong way. Nobody has any clues. Everybody is just fumbling around trying to figure it out on their own, right? And what emerges out of this, I feel like, are heartfelt recommendations for guidelines, for a way of doing things or a way of seeing things or going about things, but it's not particularly right. It's not an ultimate universal truth, because ultimately I also don't know. I don't know. I have no clue. And I guess that is something I wish I knew before I tried to work on this psychedelic course, because I felt like I was never gonna get to an ultimate right way of guidelines, a right set of guidelines that works for everybody. It's just not possible, because you are finding your own unique way. And the best I can do is support you on that journey of finding your own way as much as I can. And then, if you're open, maybe share some heartfelt recommendations. But there is no clear guidelines. There's no rules around this space. It's wild, uncharted territory that we're in. And I kind of wish I knew that is the case before I started working out, because then I kind of would have trusted my own wisdom a little bit more instead of seeking the answer in other people who have walked the path before. Obviously, as I mentioned with the other point of community, it's wonderful and marvelous and one of the most important things to connect with other people who have walked the path and to learn from them and to maybe even be an ever-emergent student, right? But also trust your own wisdom, because you are also your own master on this path of navigating the psychedelic space. So those are 5 more things I wish I knew. As I said, if you haven't checked out the other video, check it out right here regarding 5 more things I wish I knew before I started on my journey of psychedelic actualization. And otherwise, if you're curious about working with me one-on-one and joining the inner circle, as I said, link in the video description. Much love to you all. Have a blessed day. Namaste.